strategy is there Professor Chatterjee will speak on the topic forensic cases, interpretations, and social cases, and anthropological articles. So I invite you, Professor Chatterjee.
Very good afternoon, respected Professor K.K. Sir, and all my dear scholars and students. Today I'm with a different thought-provoking topic. That is, I belongs to that is my area of interest is biological anthropology. But without thinking anthropology as a whole, and without thinking the effect in society, the social implications, to read or study or do the research in anthropology is not complete. It is my personal observation. So that's why today I will go with two case studies. That is on, the forensic anthropology is a very important tool in criminal justice system. So my topic is the forensic cases interpretation. I will interpret the cases and social implications in anthropology. That's why I choose this topic for today's presentation. Now, it is the bridge. Forensic anthropology is a bridge, is a very important tool. Thank you very much. Sorry for the inconvenience. So it's a very important tool and it's a critical tool in criminal justice system. So this is a structure. Now the concept, next slide. Now the concept is coming that nobody can disclose the identity. Those who are working in forensic lab, those the police person they are working, those the judge who are associated with this case, and all the person, the law enforcement authority and others person also, the lawyer also, they can access the data. That is the FIDEX network structure. Nobody can disclose the identity, but they can access the case detail and everything. So this is now the forensic anthropology, forensic science structure for case analysis. So the first case I have chosen, it is a resolved case, but a huge impact on next, right? The huge impact on society we have. That is the neighbor. It's a very famous case. That is the why the Nirubha case is very important in anthropology. That is the number of reported cases in India has been massive jump after the Nirubha case. That is the number one reason. And number two, second reason is the awareness of the public has been increased. Next slide. So that is the case overview. The 23-year-old, that is Nirubha, meaning the fearless. The incident happened on 16 December 2012 in Delhi. It is. And the nature of crime was the brutal gang rape, physical assault, attempted murder. The outcome, the victim succumbed to injuries on December 2012. Government has tried a lot. The society has prayed a lot, but the victim succumbed. Right? The detailed overview of the case reported on 17 December and nationwide test begin. All 6 accused arrested. The victim dies, on the trial, appeals, and eventually execution of convicts. Finally, the end is given to this. This is the example of the case. Next. So what are the forensic evidences we have collected in this case? That is the DNA. Number one is the DNA evidence. So this is the first case. The DNA and the forensic anthropology played a very vital role. So that is the semen samples found on victim clothes and fluid. That is the a multiple assault has been proved from the semen and DNA sample. The injuries and autopsy report, if we analysis this, the severe internal injuries caused by a blunt rod and multiple organ damage. The metal rod inserted through vagina in the body and the organ, the intestine came out from the body. So very terrific scene of bite marks, internal bleeding signs, and violence assault has been proved. We have seen them in this case. So, what are the medical forensic reports analysis? The forensic gynecological examination shows deep vaginal and rectal trauma, presence of foreign objects. As you know, the metal rods and other things are inserted in the body. The time of the movement of the mobile phone and others, it is correlated with the bus movement. That is the medical forensic report. Next, the fingerprint and blood stains, blood found in bus and matched with the victim and the accused and the victim and the accused. The fingerprints of accused found on bus, rails and window and everywhere. It is all these are collected. The bus upholstery carried both victims and accused blood traces there. They get the 6 blood traces there. They are 6 and the victim and the one boyfriend is there, So there is a 6 blood traces. Now this is the first time application of the digital forensic in this case. Judge has given the permission for this evidence. There is a CCTV footage from all toll booths has been collected, captured, buzzed during the crime time. The mobile phone location of the accused matched with the route. Next. The accused, the legal procedure, what has been done there? The Ram Singh, the main accused, he is the senior most and he is the driver of that bus. Allegedly, the main story is that they're supposed to garage the bus. They are 6 and one juvenile is also there. And now, seeing this girl, they have decided to take them in the bus and whatever the incidents they have done. So and Ram Singh has committed suicide in Tihar jail, and 4 main adult, the sentence to death, and 1 juvenile has been sent to juvenile correction home and released in 2015. Next, the legal reforms. That is the very important, the anthropological perspective. Why this case is this, whatever I have told you, the case XR, that is what are the effect of society, what are the effect in judiciary system after this case. That is the criminal law amendment that is after a long time in 2013, that is expanded the definition of the introduction of fast track court in case of such kind of heinous crime has been introduced. The Juvenile Justice Act, here what are the changes has taken? Now the 18 up to 18 years of before this case, they are sentenced to the correction home, and after 2-3 years they have been released. But after this case, it has been decided that in case of such kind of heinous crime, the 16-year will be the cutoff age. That the age of 16, that boy or girl will be considered as adult. Such kind of heinous crime. So it's a revolutionary change has been happened in the Juvenile Justice Act, and very important is the establishment of Nirbhaya Fund. Because that there is no fund for such kind of cases, but the Nirbhaya Fund has been allocated in this case. The forensic reforms, what are the proper emphasis is given on the recovery of the body, recovery of the victim, recovery of the forensic evidences. That is the proper chain custody of such kind of things. Use of sexual assault forensic aid, that is the safe kits, has been introduced and given to the all different states and forensic laboratories. The specialized forensic lab for gender-based violence. So before that, gender-based violence has not been given the importance. After this case, the development of forensic laboratories in police authority, the gender-based violence cell has been opened. Here, the justice is delayed. It delayed for 8 years, but not denied. Why I am coming? The media has played a very vital. So we told that the media trial of this case is very, very. We have seen a mass movement. Before that, in any case, we have never seen that such kind of mass movement. The Nirbhaya case showed us that it is a mass movement. Next, the changes in legislation and impact on criminal justice system and challenges in implementation. All three are the main points of the Nirbhaya case. The background of the movement, why such kind of movement has been started throughout the country, and apart from India, outside our country, such kind of movement has been spreaded. The light of the movement, it provoked unprecedented protest in India. The harassment and violence against women and girls in India came into international spotlight. This is the first time. Protest. The protest against the Prevalence of Violence Act perpetrated against women. 7 metro rail stations has been closed for the non-accessibility of the normal people. The attack sparked widespread protest and the campaign by civil society group. The protest against rape has become a mass movement. Before that, it never be a mass movement. This is the first time it must. Next slide. The social impact. It's a decentralized and collective social movement. It's a not centralized movement. It's a not planned movement. No leader is there. No political persons are there. So it's a decentralized in different areas. Digital support and on the ground movement. The digital technology has played a very important role here. The normal people, they feel that Nirbhaya is our daughter. So they joined the movement. More to light the extent of gender inequality and violence against women throughout the country. So people feel that there is still inequality, gender inequality. It has been proven with this case. Helped to create a greater awareness and social intolerance towards gender crime. Brought a change to public conversation about women's issue. Before that, the women empowerment is there, but the only thinking is that women will be empowered by the male. Women can't empower themselves by their. That is the change happened before Nirbhaya case and after Nirbhaya. If the males are willing, they can empower the women, but women can't be empowered themselves. So that is the change. The taboo on discussing rape and sexual violence has been broken. Everybody is very eager or keen to discuss on that, as because it's a very important issue. The legal impact, the rape law and the rape definition has been changed here. All the next slide. All these are the accused, the 4 accused have been hanged, and the Ram Singh Lord has been committed suicide in Bihar. That is next. That is a big question. Did the Nirbhaya outrage start a long-term evolution? It is not a long-term evolution. Still, we came in there is evolution, there is few changes. But the Nirbhaya gang rape was definitely the spark that ignites the fire for women's rights and women's safety. But sadly, the fire was short-lived. The public outrage died in a few months, and with it, women's issue took their usual place in the Delhi agenda. We came in the same position. Next. That is few, I already mentioned that the media played a very important role, few newspaper cuttings, the Derek brand, the MP, and all other things given their statement. That is a collage. Next slide. That is the bill, the rape and sexual harassment law 375 IPC has been changed, and this is at the right side. This is the original order, copy of the original order. It has been changed, and what has been included in the definition of rape as any involuntary and forceful penetration without the woman's consent into the woman's body parts like the vagina, urethra, mouth, and such and such. It has been considered as rape. Before that, it has not been. Next slide. That is the Justice Verma Committee report. There is the committee has formed. That is the Justice Verma Committee. It is very important. The rape crisis shell should be there in, and the very important that CCTV footage and other evidence should be considered as a very vital evidence. And there should be the provision of online FIR in the police stations, and every support and every courage should be given to the victim, as because they can protest or they can lodge the FIR, and they can take a very strong step against the accused. That is the main excerpt of the Verma Committee, Justice Verma Committee report. Next. Finally, we have seen this is a very painful scene we have seen in the media, that the victims, they are laughing that we have done right. It's a very painful, and the Deepa's mother told that I'm so painful that Deepa is not only my daughter, Deepa is the daughter of the country, everyone's daughter. Next. Another very important step is that the P. Chidambaram, the finance minister, they have already created a Nirbhaya fund. I mentioned that is the 1,000 crore Nirbhaya fund for the development, the infrastructure of such kind of crime. Next slide. There is the changes in Indian Penal Code after 1860, after a long period, the 166A, 326A, 354A, 354B, 354C, 354D, such kind of changes we have seen in Indian Penal Code. But apart from that, the next slide, the lots of limitations are there. Whether the police is going to recover the body or they are not willing to follow the standard operating protocol, as because there is no such standard operating protocol which they will follow. So, however, it is not a foolproof science, and its limitations. Such incorrect result may be obtained due to insufficient sample quality, improper collection method, or delay in an examination. That is the main thing. Next. And still, in the criminal justice system, the benefit of doubt will go to the accused, not the victim. And it is needed adapt to due protocol or standard operating protocol. Still, it is needed to take or make a standard SOP standard. A number of times, the victims, they have tried, their lawyers have tried to mislead the court. For example, I would like to give you one example, that one victim has been gone for the blood transfusion, and whether the government lawyer, government pleaders, they have placed the DNA report, the victim's lawyer misleading the court, the judge, that the DNA has been changed after the blood transfusion. According to in anthropological concept or in genetic concept, it is not possible. Anywhere it is not possible. The change of DNA profile. So they have tried a lot to mislead the court. That's why it takes a long time for the justice. The bench, they have given the famous Justice Bhanumati and other Justice Asal Bhushan and other judges. They have given the very historic decision. Said DNA technology not only provided guidance to investigation, but also supplied the court acquired information about the DNA features of identification of criminals, and such evidences was increasingly relied upon by the court. Court always relied after that case. That's a revolutionary case. Next slide. Next slide. That is the rich, the night, what is left. That is the DNA profiling. It is the aspect, it is a very acceptable evidence to the court. The bench, next slide. The bench also noted that there were various white bite marks on the victim's body, and such analysis report plays an important role in the criminal justice system, as because with the DNA profiling, with the DNA fingerprinting, the analysis of bite mark is a very strong tool in forensic anthropology. After with the dental forensic odontology, it's a very important branch in anthropology. So it plays a pivotal role in this case, and judge, they have accepted, is logically accepted on this. The bench also said that in India, like others, the increasingly being relied upon by the courts of 2005 and other forensic anthropology or forensic science methodologies has been accepted by the court as evidence. Finally, Nirvana Mila Insaf, after long gap. Another observation of the court, few observation. So there is the sampling should be proper, preservation of samples should be proper, analysis should be proper, identity should not be disclosed, and everything lots of SOP has been made by the court. Before that, it's not been there. There is the famous, right? That is the next. That is the famous judges, Justice Bhushan, Justice Bhanumati, and there is the famous judgment they have given. There is the next slide. There is the fighter lawyer. This fight a lot. Next. The apex court observation that there is no reason to declare DNA report as inaccurate. Always DNA report should be considered as accurate. And blood and other samples has been collected, it has been analyzed, and it has been taken as the very important evidence because the Ajmal Kasab case, this methodology has been applied, case. So that is the historic case. That's why this case is very important. So the advisory fund, so everybody believes that Nirva is daughter. That is the next. That is the fearless police officer. They are the investigating officers. They are the women officer. They have proved that it should be shot like this way, in this way, and they already next slide already have said that the methodologies in forensic anthropology, that is forensic anthropology and scanning that has been accepted in this case. So the laser next slide, the laser scanning method, electron microscopy, cone beam computer tomography, and all other such kind of technologies has been accepted by court in this case. Next, this poor person has been hanged and body is sent for autopsy. Now, next slide. I'll come to the next case, this case study. That is, it is declared as suicide. That is the Sushant Singh Rajput case. It's a very historic case. It's a very impact on our society. Anthropologically, it is very important. But few bitter side, the darker side has been opened with this case. I'm coming with this. I'm closely associated with this case. That is, so by profession, Sushant Singh Rajput was a Bollywood actor. Died on 14 June 2020 in Mumbai in his residence, and suicide by hanging. Age was 34 years. Next. That is the sweet Sushant Singh Rajput. Still, I am not lost. I am very much alive. It is our feeling, our personal feeling. Everyone's. That is the when the body is recovered. You are seeing the ligation mark at the neck, and the recovered in the body. The body has been taken out at the bed, floor, body for the packing, prepared for the postmortem. After postmortem, that is the photographs. Hope you have not seen such kind of photographs. And that is the timeline. Paucity of time is not possible to discuss in elaborate. I'm coming to the investigation aspects, the autopsy and medical findings. Why it is important? The death of by asphyxia. How I come hanging. The postmortem report, no signs of struggle or external injury have been seen, except the ligation mark. The AIMS forensic panel under CBI concluded it was suicide, ruled out murder. Next slide. Toxicology reports. No traces of alcohol or poison found. Routine medicines detected consistent with Sushant Singh Rajput mental health treatment. She was then under treatment. The scene investigation. In reality, whatever the report made, in reality, the case is different. It is very hard truth that toxicology report and other reports came different, but placed in a different manner. That is the painful reality. So, cloth used the green Kuta, no signs of forced entry in the room. The CCTV footage verified no outsider entry in the room. the evidence collected, the cloth, mobile phones, personal diary, prescriptions, medicines, CCTV footage, fingerprints, room and other things it has been recovered in the body. And such kind of the ligature mark has been is there. The external injury, there is no external injury. Internal injury, no, not reported. Toxicology, there is no evidence of alcohol and poison. And high oil bone is intact. That is very important. But what is the question in the recovery in this case? The autopsy was allegedly done at night without autopsy is not allowed during night. After sunset, autopsy was not allowed. Video recording or adequate documentation highlighting the why it has been done. We don't know that. The AIMS forensic panel. Today I had a talk with the didn't headed by today also I had him and the doctors are there. The conclusion death by suicide. That is the next slide. There is the close ligature marks. Very important ligature. So very important that the toxicological test revealed no traces of narcotics, alcohol, but there is question why it has been done on this. There is traces, but it's not. This report has not yet. The prescribed medication or anxiety, depression was present in the blood. The digital forensic, the CCTV footage, the mobile phone recording, mobile phone data, everything has been scanned and it's been used as evidence. Another important thing is next slide. That is the another very important thing, the psychological autopsy. You never heard such kind of psychological autopsy. It has been done by the CBI. So they have started interviewing the friends, family doctors, and other the treatments that given by the Sushant Singh Rajput as because he was under treatment. Found history of bipolar disorder and clinical depression. And another very important thing is the indication of paranoia, isolation, and withdrawal from the place. It has been proved. Why? I'm coming. The forensic angles, and because the end of fiber matching the ligature mark, everything has been matched. Next slide. Crime scene, photograph, and recreation also done. Next. Room was locked and everything. That is, next slide. Next slide. The media here also played a very important role. The non-stop coverage by TV news channels, accusation, conspiracy theory, and character assassination of SSR's friend and girlfriend and colleagues, that is. And very important thing is that several journalists and channels face backlash for unethical reporting. Whatever their own made story has been telecasted on. Next. That is the evidence, the claim murder, Bollywood mafia. That is very important. The Bollywood mafia played very important role here, as because that's why the all reports did not came out. And another is important that the Shahrukh Khan's son has been arrested with the drug peddling. So there is TBI already it is proved that there is relationship with the drug peddlers with the dark world of love. So SSR has been attached with such kind of word. So that may be the reason is there. So there is another important next slide. That is the online activism. Online activism is very strong activism is there. Hashtag live justice for SSR and CBI for SSR training for months. Fan-led social media campaign. Pressured government and agencies. Next, the mental health debates. There, the debate started, opened up national dialogue on mental health in high pressure career. Stigma around depression and therapy. Nobody is, if I am in depression, I am not able to make it out. There is nobody. If I told my very close someone, they will laugh on me, and my colleagues will laugh on me. You are in depression. Why? So that is the reason, that's the disease of the society. So anthropologically, that's why this case is also very important. Need for psychological support in film and corporate image. So film world and the corporate world, they're suffering much than us. Impact of Bollywood and society. So nepotism, gatekeeping in the film industry, the mental health source and drug culture, everything is very, very important. Say the state faces question of public boycott polls. You know the different sector and actresses. The current status, it has been the Riha Choudhury has been listed. This case has not been closed, but it has been supposed to close. There is nothing there, no evidence for there is something new. So, role of forensic, it's like the forensic anthropology and forensic science plays a very important role. Next slide. In the criminal justice system, in the investigating system, and it has a very deep social, next slide, it has a very deep impact in our society, in our social life. And another very important case, you know, the Anusi Hemraj case, it is also it has a very deep impact in our society. Next, I will come to the end of my presentation. Still, there is lots of question. Rape in India, still we have to rethink. So, National Crime Report proved that the rape cases have been increased in India. Why? People are not coming to the police station. They are not making the report. After this case, they have started making report or lodging FIR as online FIR has been started. So that's why the record shows that the cases have been increased. And the countries with lowest per capita rate of rapes, that is the Team Certainly and NCRB 21 statistic, Rajasthan and the northern states, they have been reported as the highest rape cases. That is very, where is the patriarchy is very strong. Rape cases very strong there. That is proved. Next slide. Still, courts need the evidence. Without evidence, court can't proceed. Our anthropology, our duty is to know the impact and give the courage to the people for protest, for making the complaint and everything. It can be effective. Next. And another important thing is that you know the boy that is released in 2015, the juvenile, has given 10,000 for the terrorism. So we don't know it's a right decision or wrong. So we don't know. We have to rethink as an anthropologist. So next slide. The popular culture played a very important role for cinema, and you know the BBC made the documentary, the India's Daughter, the Netflix series. Next slide. The next Netflix series, Delhi Crime, and lots of popular culture played a very important role in this case. The breaking the silence. Next slide. The breaking of silence is very important. Only anthropology, sociology, such kind of subject, those act as a social medicine. They have the opportunity to do it. Next slide. And another very important step that in education, the sex education and the gender violence has been included in the syllabus of study. That is the thing happened after these cases. Next slide. The global solidarity of people came in a point that it is wrong and this is true. They are decisive after these cases. Slide. Ongoing challenges, we have lots of challenges. We have the strong effect of patriarchy. We have lots of questions in women empowerment. We are running with such kind of questions. Next slide. Support of legal proceeding, but legal proceeding it need the evidence. So every time it is giving evidence is very difficult. Next slide. What result? Take home message: the legal reforms, changes, social and cultural shifts, psychological, emotional impact, and long-term effect for future right. It happens with this study. Next slide. Now it's supposed to be the last slide, and our challenges. We are in the same boat. All we are in the same, but we are questioning to each other. That is the law enforcement, the judiciary, the corrections, the forensic, the entire criminal justice system, and all of we in the same. So please think over it. So our challenge, next slide, our challenges are, next slide. Number one is patriarchy. Number two is poverty. Number three is illiteracy and improper use of power. That is our main challenge. Plus, next slide. Thank you very much. Thank you very much.
हेलो हाँ क्या ज्वाइन नहीं हो रहा है ओके लेट मी चेक ओके ओके आई फॉरगेट send it because please send it and you highlighted various aspects. I was just going through your kind of presentation, the way you presented you aspects, sociological aspects, forensic aspects, some biological and anthropological aspects, and I was one of many kind of concepts that you have used. You beautifully elaborated the case studies using kind of secondary sources of information also. I think there will be several questions from the audience. Can come here so that people online can also listen to you.
No, sir. Sir, when we discussed about the crimes and the various cases, and we discussed about the who done it with their name. So, what is the point where we can draw the line between the right to be forgotten and in the national interest, for the national interest, we are publicizing their name. So, what is the point where we can draw this line? But here, we are not taking the name of any particular victim. It is definitely illegal. But we are criticizing the accused. So that's why I'm intentionally taking a photo that I am also a part of that. From anthropological point of view, I am lodging my protest. So that's why they should be criticized every time, even after. That's why I am intentionally taking. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Thank you to everybody.
I forwarded it again. This
Hello, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. Okay. Okay, but sir, I send you a link in WhatsApp. Oh, okay. Then the please note the passcode for the meeting. 466501. 501. Yeah. Hello. हाँ 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 ये कोई खड़े होंगे वहाँ पर देखिए आपको कॉल आएगा ठीक है हम कॉल करने के लिए बोलते हैं ये एक्चुअली मीटिंग हाँ 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 ठीक
is right here.
Hello. Call me, call me.
It's not a job. It's us.
Hello. Call me. WhatsApp group में comment. Join किया सकते हैं. नहीं, हाँ, join किया.
Hello, good afternoon.
Dr. Malarika, just check your voice. Am I audible to you?
Yeah, but am I audible?
I think it's mute. Can you unmute yourself? I can't hear you. Unmute, please. Unmute.
Can you be a little bit louder?
Yes, there is some. We can't hear you, Dr. Malarika. Please check your audio if everything is in the right place. Just check it.
Recording in progress.
Yes.
Am I audible?
Now you are audible. Yes.
Okay, okay.
So welcome, Dr. Malarika Sarkar. Dr. Maharika Sarkar is currently an assistant professor and also head of Department of Sociology, University of Calcutta. Dr. Maharika Sarkar is going to talk on this very vital topic, intersectionality in social services, which I was talking about. So, yeah, Professor Sarkar, over to you.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm very grateful to Dr. Behra for giving me the opportunity to share my deliberation in this one-day lecture series. And my topic of lecture is intersectionality in sociological research, and I will be delivering an oral lecture. There will not be any PPT presentation. So to begin with, we are all aware that intersectionality, it's a powerful concept. You can say it's a buzzword in the mainstream social science, but it's the least understood concept in the sense that it is somewhat ambiguous, open-ended, and it is still evolving. But the thing is that many people loosely apply this term, intersectionality, to a range of academic projects. But labeling, something as intersectional does not make it intersectional. So many people who have uh, used the term intersectional is in fact unfamiliar with understanding its concept, the history of this concept, then core construct, what are the guiding principles, what are the possibilities, as well as the challenges, because there are a lot of difficulties in applying the intersectional theory in the research. So over the years, you find that the term intersectionality, it has been interpreted in varied ways, like as a theory, as a method, paradigm, perspective, as an approach. So here I would begin by conceptualizing intersectionality, what we actually mean by this term, intersectionality, and how this term can be used as a tool or a research approach for social research. How do sociologists, practice intersectionality as a theoretical approach and method of inquiry in addressing inequalities? So considering the scholarship on intersectionality, I would like to address specifically the complexities in using intersectionalities in social research, as well as highlight, the potential. What are the promising aspects of using intersectionality in social research as it promises to offer novel insights of the lived experience. So despite though it has a lot of challenges, despite the difficulties and challenges, intersectionality continues to guide and enrich social research. So coming to the term, basically, when we actually try to understand this concept, intersectionality. Intersectionality is a critical theoretical framework which was first coined by a critical legal scholar, Kimberly Crenshaw. And this was published in her 1989 article. The name of the article is Demarginalizing the Intersection of Race and Sex, a Black feminist critic of anti-discrimination doctrine, feminist theory, and anti-racist politics. So intersectionality, as you know, it's a methodology of studying the relationship among multiple dimensions and modalities of social relationship and subject formation. So the theory suggests that there are various, categories. Like, for instance, there is biological category, social category, cultural category. So intersectionality is basically trying to examine how these various, categories, they are interacting on multiple and often simultaneous levels, and how they are contributing to systematic social inequality. So you can say that with this approach of intersectionality, we find that there is a paradigm shift, in the sense that there is a shift away from the additive models of analysis, where you understand oppression as independent, strands of inequality. So through this concept of intersectionality, you are basically viewing certain vectors of inequality as overlapping, and how these vectors of inequality are interacting to form complex configurations of subjectivity in that sense. So for example, intersectionality holds that knowing a woman's, life in a sexist society, that would hardly, give any sufficient information as how what is her experience. So instead, it is very necessary to know her class, her gender, her sexual orientation, as well as how the society is basically perceiving or understanding her standpoint or her point of view. So, like for instance, how you age. Now, that will be determined by not only your age, but by your gender, by your class, by your living arrangement, by your social support, like the support you receive from the family, from the support that you receive from the social network. So you find that all these factors does play a very important role in shaping as to how you are aging, or what it means to be old to a person. So this is just an example to show that how the intersectionality means, or what it means to be, or how the research can be intersectional in that sense. So coming to the historical roots on intersectionality, now as far as the documentation exists on intersectionality, this is very much clear that the concept of intersectionality, it came to the forefront during the period of 1960s and 70s. And this term intersectionality has a very strong connection to that of feminism. So you can say that it came as a part of critique of radical feminism that developed in the late 1990s, known as revisionist feminist theory. So this revisionist feminist theory challenged the notion that gender was the primary factor determining a woman's fate. So considering, feminism has a strong connection to this theoretical perspective, it is very important. Just an overview of feminist waves will help us to understand as to how intersectionality is basically connected to feminism. Now we know that feminism, it went through various waves. The first wave of feminism took place during the period 1850s and 1920s, and this was strongest in United States and United Kingdom. And this first wave was mainly focused on the suffrage rights, that is the voting rights of the women. The second wave took place around the period 1960s, and this continued till 1990s. And during this wave, it was seen that women extended their fight, and they focused on legal social rights, which included workplace, family, sexuality, reproductive rights, since they realized that political rights does not contain all these aspects of lived realities of women or the women's oppression. So in this phase, the feminists, they spoke of women as a social class, and they coined certain phrases which were very instrumental in shaping that the women's lives were intersectional in the sense that the most important phrases during the second wave of feminism was personal is political and identity politics. So when you say personal is political, now this is grounded on the belief that the personal experiences of women is very much rooted in their political situation and gender inequality. And identity politics, which is this term is basically coined by Combahee River Collective. This is a group of Black lesbian social feminists. And this particular group made an effort to demonstrate that race, class, gender oppression, they are all related. But what is most important is the third wave, because the third wave, from this third wave, basically we get to see the genesis of this term. That is, we can locate the genesis of this term, that is intersectionality. So the third feminist wave started in mid 1990s, and it followed up till 2010, till the rise of social media. As you can find that social media inaugurated fourth wave, but there is a lot of debate as to whether fourth wave, it could be considered as a wave. I'm not going into it. But the feminist of third wave basically tried to show the diverse range of exploitation and oppression through the attributes of age, race, and class. So this wave particularly, that is the third wave, particularly has shown women's lives as intersectional, demonstrating that women experience, layers of oppression, and that is caused by the interplay of gender, race, class, and other social markers or other social identities. So considering the epistemology or methodology that is basically used in the feminist research, now we can say that there is not one epistemology used in the feminist research, but rather a range of possibilities. But the most important thing is that the feminist research is most concerned with what is referred to as subjugated knowledge. Now, what is the subjugated knowledge? It is the knowledge that has been left out from the dominant narratives or the dominant discourse. So by subjugated knowledge, we mean to say the voice which is not heard or the voice which is not represented. So feminist knowledge basically, claims to acknowledge this kind of knowledge that is excluded, the knowledge that is excluded from the mainstream hegemonic or dominant narratives. So feminism is aware of the only main structure of power, and that is patriarchy, and how the patriarchy is basically, leading to androcentric bias in the knowledge production. So this androcentrism assumes that man is the center of the knowledge. So it's the male-centered worldview. And so it is excluding all other perspectives. So feminism is basically trying to correct this by including, all genders in knowledge. So it is making an attempt to make it more inclusive, so as to say that other factors does have a very important role. So when you consider the epistemology, so the methodology in social science, we are very aware of the fact that positivism, that is the most common epistemological paradigm in the social science. Now, this paradigm is grounded on the belief that that there is universal truth. Truth is absolutely, truth is absolute. There is no such thing as the truth is relative. The truth is out there and it can be derived objectively via scientific method. So the truth or the knowledge that is gained through scientific method, that is only valid. So this was the phase when positivism, that was the dominant epistemological paradigm. But it was since the beginning of the feminist epistemology that this kind of, line of thought was gradually getting challenged. As the feminist scholars, they criticized and they stated that no knowledge production can be fully objective. There is no such thing as universal truth. There is no such thing as absolute truth. So positivism is basically criticized for acknowledging this. And here I would mention two feminists who made a very key contribution to this debate, and they are Donna Haraway and Sandra Harding, and their literature, discusses various notions of feminist objectivity, strong objectivity, standpoint theory. Now, when we talk about, this feminist objectivity, now it is a very different kind of objectivity, unlike the objectivity that you find in positivism. So this kind of objectivity recognize that knowledge, it's the product of certain context, in the sense that knowledge is always situated. Knowledge is contextual. It cannot be neutral. It cannot be value-free concept. So feminist objectivity emphasizes, the importance of considering marginalized perspective, recognizing that those who are, living with this, or those who have faced the history of oppression, they have certain unique insights. So Harding basically worked on creating the feminist epistemology, and Harding coined the terms notion of strong objectivity and standpoint theory. And her theory is basically based on three claims. First is that knowledge is socially situated, which means that knowledge stems from a social position. So what she's trying to say is that there is no absolute knowledge, and knowledge can be different in the sense that it can be as many different social positions. So as people have different social positions, they produce different knowledge. That is the first claim. Second claim is that marginalized groups, they are socially situated in a way that it is possible for them to be aware of things and ask questions which is otherwise not possible for the non-marginalized groups. And the third, that is most important, is that the knowledge production, therefore, it must come from the marginalized perspective. So here basically comes the notion of strong objectivity as developed by Harding, emphasizing that starting research from marginalized perspective can lead to a more objective knowledge. So when she is referring this term, that is strong objectivity, she's trying to say that strong objectivity recognizes that all research is situated. It is influenced by the researcher's background, her social position, and so it is very important to acknowledge these factors. So when you acknowledge these factors, that would basically strengthen the objectivity of the research. But however, that does not mean that marginalized can only create the knowledge, but seen that anyone can create knowledge, but it is important to take into consideration the marginalized perspective. So standpoint theory thus places, large emphasis on the power relations in knowledge production. So when you consider standpoint epistemology or standpoint theory, that is the foundational framework in feminist social theory. And the standpoint, what is the standpoint? So the standpoint is an individual's unique world perspective. So how you develop the standpoint? It is basically, your social positions that is shaping your standpoint. Your view is not just coming from anywhere. The viewpoint does have a story, right? So the standpoint theory proposes that those in positions of marginalization, they are able to achieve certain standpoints which will basically put them in a better situation to know certain facts, which is otherwise not possible for the non-marginalized groups. So the theoretical basis of this approach involves that societal knowledge is always located in a person's or in the researcher's specific geopolitical location. In that sense, the knowledge is subjective, the knowledge is unique. So subjectivity is a very important role when it comes to intersectionality. So as you find that knowledge, it is varying from context to context, as it is depending upon the social conditions under which it is produced. So a special mention of one influential feminist researcher who applies standpoint theory in her work is that of Collins. And this is a landmark book, that is Black Feminist Thought, Knowledge, Consciousness, and the Politics of Empowerment, where she argues that African women experience an intersection of different oppression that is based on race, gender, and class. So this insight that both, the race and gender, they do intersect, reflected a methodology of bottom-up approach, because intersectionality is a bottom-up approach, unlike, the top-down approach that you find in the hegemonic methodological paradigm that is positivism. So in response to the standpoint theory developed by Harding, Haraway coined the term situated knowledge. Now, when we say that knowledge is situated, so that is basically adding a debate to the alternatives of positivism. So situated knowledge are a specific form of objectivity that is taking into account what the agency of the knowledge producer and that of the object of study. So, but at the same time, she's saying that we should not romanticize the view from below or the marginalized perspective, but definitely she states that views of subjugated, they are not just innocent position. They are also a very important position, and this position is somewhere. So from Haraway, positioning yourself, that is the key practice in creating situated knowledge. So what she's trying to say is that there is no view. You don't develop any view from nowhere, any view from vacuum. Every view has a story. So that story needs to be taken into account. So this means that there is no absolute truth. There are many variations of truth, and that depends on the social position from which the knowledge is being produced, right? So the situated knowledge standpoint theory, they basically agree on the fact that social location, that is the major determinant in what a person knows. So what a person experiences, that is shaped by his personal location. Now, this personal location is again determined by many factors, which could be his income, his education, sex, age, class, the sexual orientation, the social connections. There are a lot of factors, as I have given some example. So a difference between, these two scholars, that is Harding and Haraway, is that Haraway believes that the marginalized should not be romanticized. So Haraway she's basically asking a very, pertinent question, that when you're saying that the knowledge is situated, so the question that arises is whether any social situated, they are equal, or is it that some social situatedness, they are getting more privileged than they are getting more privileged in the sense that they should be privileged over other. So the question is basically, who can speak and who can speak for whom. So this is the crisis of representation. So the question of, who embodies an intersecting subject position, that is debated within identity politics. For some theorists, so you find that intersectionality is a theory that anyone can apply, as you can find that all subjectivities are characterized by the interplay of race, class, gender, and other social identities. And there are other group of researchers who hold that intersectionality is reserved for people who basically are coming from the marginalized position. So this is still, there is an unresolved dispute, and this unresolved dispute makes it all the more complex, makes it unclear whether intersectionality, is it a general theory or is it a theory of the marginalized subjectivity? So it's still quite debatable. So coming to the very important article, which is cited in many literature, as when we try to refer to Gayatri Spivak's Can the Subaltern Speak? Now she uses the term subaltern by which she is trying to say that people, subaltern is a group of people who are voiceless, in that sense, who are unheard or who are unable to make themselves heard. So these groups, they are systematically excluded from the positions of power and decision making, and their voices are ignored, or their voices are silenced from dominant narratives. So when you say subaltern, we find that all the people who are subaltern are oppressed, but all those who are oppressed, they are not subaltern. So they do not have a means, to form a group and therefore make themselves heard. But once they acquire this capability of hearing, of making them hear, or making them or voicing their concerns, they will no longer remain subaltern. So therefore, Spivak concludes that subaltern cannot speak. So what I'm trying to say is that when we are actually looking into the intricacies of intersectionality, what is important is how we can actually take positionality into account while the researcher is conducting the research. So it is very important to know, like when we are actually conducting the feminist research, unlike the other kind of research, often, prefer reciprocal relationship that is based on empathy, mutual respect. So you find that there's a symmetrical relationship in the sense that the researcher, it is seen that the researcher and the research, there is a symmetrical relationship in the sense that the researched has a greater knowledge on the research topic, and her opinion is very important. So the reason, why the feminist research is so significant is that it takes away some power from the researcher, and this power is then transferred to the researched, right? So this causes the power relations to become more equal and more symmetrical. So feminist research is basically concerned with breaking the hierarchies of power and acknowledging that knowledge is situated, knowledge is localized. So this type of research basically focuses on answering the epistemological question of who can produce knowledge, which again, leads to certain notions of feminist objectivity, strong objectivity, then situated knowledge. So this describes the idea that there is no such thing as truth is absolute, truth is universal, all knowledge is socially situated. Right. So, if feminist epistemology suggests that knowledge is situated, then standpoint is the key to knowledge production. So, in her analysis of feminist politics, Kimberly Crenshaw explains the experiences of Black women. As when we are actually reading or when we are actually trying to understand this concept of intersectionality, we find that it has a strong connection to that of Black feminism. So Kimberly Crenshaw, she basically explains that the experiences that the Black women face because of gender as well as race, that the experiences are often erased from both, the feminist and anti-racist theory. So as a result, the double oppression experienced by the Black women remains undiscussed. So Crenshaw uses the example of violence against women to argue that when you are relying on one identity, that is gender, which means that you are basically not able to get a comprehensive picture of the oppression because you are obscuring or you're not taking into consideration other social identities. So Black feminism adds to this standpoint in that the standpoint is not only gender, but gender is operating at the intersection with other factors. So Black feminism is basically recognizing the interconnectedness of race, gender, and class oppression, and it is critiquing the mainstream feminism for overlooking the unique challenges that has been faced by Black women. So many Black feminists, they have also written about the fact that they are oppressed by interaction between sexism and racism. So during 1970s, the Black feminists, they also, wrote a manifesto in which they stated that they experienced oppression based on race, class, and sex simultaneously. So in the 1980s, Lord wrote about the oppression that she has faced as she was a Black lesbian feminist. And she makes it clear that there is no solidarity between feminists in USA across different classes, across different ethnicities. So this solidarity could be achieved by the recognition of different forms of oppression that the Black women experience. So there was a collective message that was put up. So like when the Black people are talked about, the focus, it tends to be the Black men. And when the women were talked about, the focus, it tends to be the white women. So where are the Black women then? So the question, the main concern is that the Black women, they were not recognized as an oppressed group. So the first person who tried to give a name to this oppression that the Black women faced was Crenshaw, and she named it as intersectionality. So intersectionality, it was about recognizing how the multiple dimensions of inequality, they do not exist separately, but how they interact or how they are constructed in relation to one another. So intersectionality, as you find, that it is regarded as one of the most important contributions to feminist theory, but there is a lot of confusion when it comes to what we actually mean by this term and how this term can be applied in social research. And there is also a lot of debate as to whether intersectionality it's a concept or is it an approach or a method. So when you consider intersectionality as a theory, so we have seen that how the oppression that the Black women have faced, it is basically the intersection of two forms of discrimination, that is the sexist and the racist discrimination. So this, when we say intersection is not, the sum of sexism and racism, but rather the intersection of oppression. So to illustrate this, Crenshaw basically mentioned several examples of court cases where the Black women were discriminated against in the labor market. So there were cases, where she showed that the Black women did not get any recognition of the oppression that they experienced. The court recognized either race discrimination or sex discrimination, but not the intersection of the two. So as a result, the Black women, they were left out. So there was a first case, which was actually analyzed by Crenshaw, where she showed that 5 Black women, they sued their employer for discriminating against the Black women. Now, the court rejected this attempt. Why? Because the women did not sue on behalf of all Blacks or on behalf of all Black or on behalf of all women. So that basically, there was also other cases where it was seen that the employer was guilty of race and sex discrimination, but the court rejected the claim because the Black women, there were two Black women who sued the employer, but the explanation that was given by the court is that the Black women could not represent all women. So what makes the situation complex is that the Black woman may be discriminated because she is a woman, because she is Black, or because of the intersection between the two. So Crenshaw concludes that as Black women can experience intersectional discrimination, their experiences are not acknowledged in the discrimination laws. So taken together, we can say that Crenshaw argues that intersectional analysis consists of three pillars. Now, what are these three pillars? First is that racial and sexual subordination, they are mutually reinforcing. Okay, they are mutually reinforcing in the sense that you cannot explain one without referring to the other. They are so much, intertwined. Race and gender cannot be seen as mutually exclusive categories. Secondly, the Black women, they are most often marginalized either by the politics of race or by the politics of gender. And third, the response to each form of subordination must be at the same time the response to both forms of subordination. Why? Because the race, you can't separate race and sex. And this is because race and sex, they are so much intertwined. They cannot be disentangled in that way. So there are several reasons as to why, the academics struggle to fully understand this concept, because this concept basically tries to capture multi-dimensionality of social life, and that makes the concept all the more complex. So there is a lot of debate about how to conceptualize intersectionality. That's because this concept is very vague. This is very open-ended. So that makes the concept all the more complex. But despite the disadvantages, despite the challenges, researchers have, you can say that intersectionality as a theory, it has gained popularity. But intersectionality as a method
No, so this, we have internet. This is- She's trying to ban.
Why also say we have this for
Sorry, I got disconnected.
Please proceed.
So, as I was mentioning, that intersectionality as a theory, it is quite well developed. But when it is coming to intersectionality as a methodology, till date, there is no single methodology as to how we can apply intersectionality. So, the absence of methodology of intersectionality can be attributed to the difficulty of constructing research paradigm. So this term is very much complex because this term basically includes multiple dimensions of social life. And so that makes the concept much more complex. And due to the relative, shortage of literature discussing intersectionality from a methodological perspective, researchers often learn to conduct intersectional research through trial and error. So, but when you consider the methodologies, you find that not all methodologies allow for such complex analysis. Now, for example, like it may be difficult to accommodate an intersectional approach within quantitative research. So there is a lot of debate as to whether intersectionality it can be used in the qualitative research or in the quantitative research. So you find that as each methodology, contributes to a very different kind of knowledge, using the intersectional approach may limit the scope of the knowledge that could be produced. So another reason as to why there are different approaches to intersectionality is that since I've already started with stating that it's a buzzword in the mainstream social science. So it is not just, confined to the discipline of sociology. There are also other, you find the popularity of this concept in other discipline as well. And so each method, each discipline have a very different way of understanding this concept and different way to apply intersectionality. So the disciplining of intersectionality is something again, which is main concern. So this is more in line with the open-endedness or the vagueness of this concept, right? So as a result, it is very important to consider what a methodology of intersectionality it would look like and how the researchers they can develop and use the methodology that will account or that will take into consideration not only the intersection of various social identities but also account for the fluidity of these identity markers. So an important debate is still the debate that is prevalent is whether intersectionality is better suited for qualitative research or quantitative research. Now, definitely, you find that intersectionality is well developed in the qualitative research because when we actually try to look into the complex analysis or the complex reality or the lived experiences, it's actually the qualitative analysis to which we are able to make sense of the complex analysis of the reality. So qualitative research is preferred to apply this intersectionality, but however, recently in some quantitative research, intersectionality is being used, and this is basically, mentioned by one of the scholar, that is Leslie McCall. She's one of the in her one of the most influential article, The Complexity of Intersectionality, where she argues that quantitative social sciences, they are also valid and important field to practice and apply intersectionality. And she mentions that there are three possible approaches to analyze social category. So the first approach is called anti-categorical complexity. Now, as the nomenclature suggests, anti-categorical. So this approach basically rejects categories. So this approach basically emphasizes the deconstruction of social categories like race, class, and gender. So it is assuming that these categories are fluid and they are insufficient to capture the complexities of fluid experiences. Like, for instance, example would be the division of sexuality group. Like once there was a division of gay and straight, but now you find that there are more categories which are being added: bisexual, transgendered, queer. So that is why LGBTQI plus. So another example is, questioning a category such as the women. Can this category be ever be defined? So this is what you find in the first approach, that is anti-categorical complexity. The second approach is intra-categorical, as you can, as the nomenclature suggests, intra. So this approach basically, examines the diversity within a single group. When it is not comparing or not comparing the diversity across the groups, but it is examining the diversity and variation within a specific social group, acknowledging that categories are not homogeneous. So an intra-categorical approach would examine the diverse experiences of individuals within a Black community, right? Acknowledging the variations which are based on a person's gender, class, as well as sexual orientation. And the third approach is that of the intercategorical complexity. Now, this basically deals with the complexity in the sense that it is examining the variations across the group. So it is dealing with complex and ever-changing relationship among the social group, and it is using the categories as a means of explaining this relationship. So the focus in this approach, it basically lies more on the changing relationship. Okay, so when you consider the second category, that is intra-categorical complexity, where we actually try to look into the diversity within a single group, this is more suited to the qualitative approach. So an example is the case study, which is again, an in-depth study of a single group. But when you consider the third approach, that is the intercategorical approach, now the focus here, since it lies in the changing relationship, it is assumed that intersectionality can be measured by the interaction of certain categories, and this approach thus allows different statistical procedures, maybe through certain regression models. So, for example, in quantitative research, intercategorical intersectionality might involve, health outcomes that is stratified by the combination of class and gender. So the difference, between these two approaches, that is intra and inter categorical complexity, is that inter is concerned with complex relationship among social categories rather than single category that you find in intra-categorical complexity. So very interestingly, Crenshaw mentions that when you actually talk about the categories, now what are the categories? Categories, they are not just naturally given. They are socially constructed. Am I running out of time?
Dr. Malari, if you could manage within the next 2 minutes or 3 minutes. Within the next 2 minutes. Which, because of technicalities, we are allowing another 2-3 minutes if we can wrap up this.
Okay, how much time will I get?
Then you take another 2-3 minutes.
2-3 minutes. So, okay. Okay, so coming to the main important point, that when we actually talk about the categories again, they are the reflections of power as to who have the power to name the category. So naming category is a power move. The process of categorization does not just happen through one party. There are many parties who are involved in this naming the category. Like for instance, a group is naming the party, and a group is basically naming a category, and it depends on the other group as to how they are interpreting. So, which could be different from the one that is created by the original person. So this means that this does not mean that there is unequal power, but what I'm trying to say is that there is some degree of agency exists with the people that who are basically in the process of categorization. So the first is the power of categorization, and the second is how this power of categorization is impacting, in the sense that what are the consequences to this categorization. So Crenshaw is basically problematizing this process of categorization. Okay, so this once again shows the exclusion of the intersectional experiences, because when the category women is formed, the narratives on which this category is based are most often based on the experiences of white women. And when the category Black is formed, you find the narratives on which this category is based, it is on the experiences of Black men. So this basically shows the exclusion of the intersectional experiences. So coming to the last point, that is two important points that should be noted when you are actually doing the intersectional research. That is how, as a researcher, you are positioning yourself and the reflexibility. That is central to intersectional research. That is how you are able to, reflect, how you are basically considering your position as a researcher, in the sense that how you are just not going with the mundane understanding of the thing, and then you are asking certain questions in the sense that you are complicating the question. Like, for instance, if I say that if I start with how you understand gender, and if I start with a very archaic notion of what is the difference between sex and gender, and I say that sex is a biological category and gender is a social category, then somehow I try to complicate this understanding in the sense that I ask a question that is sex a social, can sex be social, or is sex a product of society? So this is basically, reflecting, you are asking certain questions and you are getting certain insights which is otherwise not possible when you are considering the original line of thought. So this is the way you reflect. So reflexibility and how you're positioning yourself. So when you're positioning yourself as a researcher, so what is important is how the knowledge is situated. You are not just positioning yourself, but you are positioning all those who are involved in the research. So it's that the knowledge is socially situated. Knowledge is the basic crux of intersectionality says that the knowledge is situated, the knowledge is localized, and the knowledge is contextual. There is no such thing as absolute truth, and there is no such thing as absolute, or there's no such thing as absolute universal truth. Okay.
Thank you very much, Professor Malarika. In fact, this is a very vital topic of intersectionality. Was at least one day session to discuss this issue. But anyway, we could very well manage within 45 minutes or 50 minutes. So I think there will be a lot of questions, but due to paucity of time,
I can't hear the
one
questions.
more question. Will allow just one question. Yeah, please.
First of all, I hope you are able to hear me. Are you able to hear me, ma'am?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Yes. The coordinator has already announced that there is a positive time, so I'll not prolong it further.
Mm-hmm.
I have got one clarification and one question.
Mm-hmm.
The clarification is that as a researcher, I absolutely get confused what you said. At the same time, you are saying that the aim of research is to find out the truth. And at the same time, you are saying there is nothing called truth. You know,
Yes.
everything
Yes.
is everything
Yeah.
is everything is situational. And so
Okay.
now as a
Okay.
researcher, this is my dilemma as a researcher. What
Mm.
should I do? I'll give a very small example. I'm not going to African American women, or I'm not going to the example of black women, or I'm not going to the example cited by Welch or others. I'm going to cite the example of our own Indian writers on feminism. In Bengal, medieval Bengal, there were two titles that were used for. One is Devi and one is Dasi.
Mm.
Women as a Devi and women as a Devi and women as a Dasi. Now, my scholar asked me that where should I put the Bengali, typical Bengali woman? Should I call her a Devi or a Dasi? What should be your answer? The second is intersectionality is so confusing. At the same, you are saying that, you are admitting that it is very confusing, but at the same time, you are recommending that use intersectionality as a method. Madam, my second question is a question. The second question is that you are saying it is a methodology. I'm specifying, I'm underlining methodology. And I'm very keen to know how do you differentiate between a method and a methodology, and whether intersectionality is a method or a methodology. Thank you.
Okay, addressing the third question, as you said, that it is the difference between methodology and method. Methodology is basically, philosophy of the research process. That is how you are basically conducting the research, and method is the technique. And when it is coming to intersectionality, it is an approach. It's a theoretical approach. So when you are actually coming to the research, you are basically trying to look into whether you are, looking into intersectionality as a concept, as a theory, or as a method. So that is why I mentioned that as a theory, intersectionality is quite developed, is well developed, but when it is coming to applying intersectionality as a methodology, there is a lot of uh, difficulties in applying intersectionality. So intersectionality as a methodology, it is still evolving in that way. So methodology and method, intersectionality is not a methodology in the sense that it is an approach. It is more an approach. So there are different ways. It's an approach. It's a paradigm. It's a perspective. You can think about intersectionality in this way. And then addressing the first question as you have put, Bengali women, as to how you would categorize them. Now, coming to this question, that whether we can actually consider the women as a category, as a homogeneous category. So again, when I'm saying that you are actually there is no absolute truth, and the truth is relative in the sense that truth is contextual. The knowledge that is gained, that is contextual, that is localized, that is situated. So that depends on the social position of the producer. Like for instance, as I say that how I age or how you will age, no two people will age in the similar manner. So how you age, that will be different from how I will age, because there are a lot of factors that will determine my age, and there are a lot of factors that will determine your age. And it's basically, so that is why it is very difficult to say or to consider the women as a homogeneous category, right? So am I able to address?
Okay, thank you very much. We have discussed a lot this is, as you said, this is an approach, critical approach. Kind of better well established. So this again the confusion like how will approach less. So anyway, this very interesting talk. In fact, very thoughtful. So if there will be time in future, obviously we will discuss this. Thank you.
Thank you.
And,
Can I leave?
yeah, please. Thank you very much.
Okay.
The next aspect is very vital lecture on this topic from ethnographic field to sociological trend. Emerging frontier in the sociology by Professor Suti Kanungo. So, Professor Suti Kanungo is basically an assistant professor in sociology from the Humanities and Social Sciences and Statistics in the Institute of Technology. So, I invite you.
Thank you all for your patience till now. A very good afternoon. A very good afternoon to all present here. So I would be taking you through the topic that we have titled as from ethnographic field to sociological frameworks, emerging frontiers in labor sociology. So here in this particular
talk, I would be taking you from, or I would be taking you back and forth from the field to the theory, and then from the theory back to the field that a research scholar goes through during the PhD time. So we will start with the first slide. Okay, that's all. So we would start this lecture with a discussion on this particular picture. What do we see? The question goes to you. What do we see in this picture? Okay. Two ladies enjoying the coffee. What else? Having their usual discussions. Yes. What else? Okay, I won't take much time over here, but take you through certain points which particularly social science theorists point us to, and here I would be referring to C. Wright Mills. The writing was in 1970s, which later on Anthony Giddens took up as looking at the society and see what is beyond something that is there in front of us is not what it is actually. So that is where the very concept of sociological imagination comes in, where it shows that it's not just two women with the coffee. The story can be beyond that. Why only see something that is just there in front of us as it is? Why only the traditional point of view when you are a researcher? Why not look beyond? So if we look beyond, if you can give a click, you can have a discussion around the very concept that is coffee. They might be having a discussion on the coffee. Why not black coffee? Why cappuccino? Or why not or the positives and negatives of having a coffee? Meeting a discussion. Sometimes it can be also a point which can bring us to a discussion around it is not just two women with coffee, but a regular routine habit, as we had the coffee sessions in the morning. A part of interaction, a space where people can come together to have a discussion, know each other, a way of socializing that the people say, and also not only a way of socializing, but also from other point of views. If you try to look at this picture, you can interpret the very concept of consumption of coffee. Not only that, the way the very concept of coffee has emerged from the global market to the present condition. A process that is involved, maybe a process that you can term as starting with the very concept of farming to cooperatives to export to distributor to roaster, importer, coffee shop, and then the consumers. Entire process that is involved in just one picture. So why only two women with a cup of coffee? Look beyond. So that is where a field work or field starts with. So moving to the next slide. Next slide. Another picture, another story. What does it reveal? Not at this point, after this discussion on the first slide, I'm sure you will have more thought-provoking understanding about what this picture would imply other than a woman standing with good. So that's where I would take you. I won't go deeper into, but that's where my experiment has shown that that's where I received the answer that a woman, wealthy woman rather, where the father can afford this much of good, and that's where she is, wealthy woman in her marriage with this picture. But there is more than that attached to it, and that's where I would be taking you through, where I would be bringing you into my field, taking you out of the field and then putting you into the theoretical frameworks, the sociological point of views, and that's where we would start with the very concept that is social life of things. The point that Appadurai made in 1986 that everything has a life. Or that's where I would take you to that, isn't that the thing has a life or the thing that gives you a life or that gives many a life. The life and the livelihood, can you down the slide? Where if we take that picture and move into the very concept of gold that the woman was wearing. So the life that gold holds. So if we look at gold from mines to our homes, its entry into the homes, we would see that it moves out of the mines to the worlds, to into the states through export, import, whatever it is. From the states moving into the bullion banks. So we have specific banks that are nominated by Reserve Bank of India to keep the gold imports of the country. From the banks, we enter into the national banks, the traders, the wholesale traders, and then the retailers, finally the manufacturers, and moving into the homes of the consumer. So having said that, if we look at it, again, the picture is divided into two categories. One, a formal form of transactions that is going on, and the other one is the category of labor that is involved in each and every phase, starting from the mining phase. So if we look at it, the life of gold brings us all into a point where we see that it's not just a metal, but also a metal that gives life to many, starting with the ones who are the miners, who are the traders, and the retailers, and the manufacturers. So that's where the life of gold stands. But here I won't restrict you to the very concept of gold, but if we look at any kind of metal, that's where I would go back to Appadurai, who points out that it has a life. So the metal has a life of its own. But what is important here to point out is throughout there is involvement of labor. And that's where, if we can go to the next slide, we would see the world of labor entering into the purview. But that's where also goes the question that who is actually a labor. That's where I would give a very brief about the concept of labor that is usually taken from International Labour Organization, that has defined labor as any point which involves both the physical and mental activity in exchange of a wage or remuneration. That's what is, or that is the point which we define as labor. And labor in society are divided again according to International Labour Organization into various categories on the basis of their skills. And when we enter into this world of labor, and particularly the ILO classification, this is the classification that has been given by ILO in 2008, but this classification has been modified over the time. It had started in 1958, then 68, then 88, and finally we have this one continuing till today, that is 2008, where the labors were categorized on the basis of skills. The very first one is the armed force occupations that involve work around the armed forces, which includes or which has or which requires skill of arms. Then there are various other kinds of skills involved. The skills are categorized on the basis of skill level 1, 2, and 3, as well as 4. Particularly 3 and 4 includes the work of managers, professionals that do not require the physical labor, but mental space that is required. But when it comes to skill level 2, ILO has refer to the ones where skills are included, skills like the skills of artisans, the skills of fishery, or skills of machine operators, particularly technical kind of skill that is required. There is one category where ILO has referred to, that is skill level 1, which includes elementary occupations, mostly the occupation of building workers, that comes under the skill level 1, which which requires a very high level of your physical labor in order to cater to the work of labor. So that's where the first classification of labor in our society goes on. But more than that, if we look at the world of labor, when we use the very term labor and have defined it as the one which includes a group of people whose physical and mental energy is required in order to cater to or reach a certain point, that's where we can take up again the ILO report of how the labor market has been divided over the times. So if there is a raw material and we require a finished product of the raw material, we usually get involved into two categories of market. The first market would be your formal market, and the other market is the informal markets, where in the formal, the very concept of formal we use as something that is highly secure, or we can say that organized form of market that we see in and around us. But on the other hand, we have a form of market which is highly informal, and particularly in Indian context, that is dominated by an informal market, where we see even the involvement of or the coming together of formal and informal in the market context. So that's where we see laborers getting involved, and when it is an informal market which has its employer-employee, there are other categories of workers that is involved, and these categories are mostly or it mostly includes the self-employed, the wage workers, and flexible laborers. So particularly again coming to the social science background, when we use the very term wage, we distinguish the very concept of wage from salary, where the very concept of wage is where you are paid on a daily basis, whereas salary is something that is given to you on monthly basis, irrespective of whether you are present for the work on a day or not. So that's where the informal units stand and who've come together in proper coordination with the formal sector, be it through our individual transactions, networks, subsector networks, or through a value chain of networks to reach to a finished product. So that's where stands our labor world, or the world of labor. And when we enter into the field of labor, that is where comes the very question: who is it that we are going to study? As already pointed out in the previous discussions, that when we choose whom to research, the very question of the standpoint comes in. What is your point that you are researching this particular group of people? Then comes the question: what methodology are you using? Qualitative, quantitative? If you are using qualitative for say, which includes other different types, that includes your interviews, observations, survey, case study, focus group, ethnography, and multi-sited ethnography. That's where also comes the question that the moment we enter into the field, we usually get into the questions like: who are you? Why are you here? What do you want from us? How is this study going to help us? What benefits will we get by answering to your questions? Right now we are busy. Can you approach us too? And that's where the very point that comes in, particularly when it is also around the world of work and labor, any kind of labor where we are interviewing. The very point that right now we are busy, can you visit us tomorrow would be the answer. So that's where the methodological challenges would come in any kind of qualitative inquiry that we often conduct. So taking all this from the field experiences that I have from my field, I take you through the point. Next slide. Where I started my research, which was a field that was high, that had raw materials of very high value, highly regulated, and the technology of an artisan. So the field of the goldsmithing workplaces, where I was supposed to be conducting my research, and that's where why I used, or what was my standpoint when I entered into the field would be the point we would be discussing from here on. But that was where I started my field with the very point that, okay, I want to study the goldsmiths, and then that is where I want to look at the transformations at their workplace, and particularly the mobility of the artisans. It had its other standpoints over there, why I chose goldsmiths, why not other kind of artisans. So keeping that aside, I took up this as the field, particularly the smith, and the methodology that I took up was multi-sided. Again, why multi-sided? So the very concept multi-sided given by George Marcus in 1995, if you look at it, doesn't mean that we just have to move to multiple sites. But the moment we use the term multi-sided, it also means to follow multiple people, to follow multiple things, or follow a metaphor like the metaphors of the labor society, follow a particular plot. So my plot when I started with the field research was looking at the workplace changes and the mobility of the artisans, for example, and follow the life, the lived experiences of the artisans, and follow a conflict. That was where we entered into the very idea that whether formal and informal can come together. The conflict between what is actually formal, what is informal, can be formalized the very informal in our society, was where the research started with all the theoretical backgrounds through the literature reviews that was being conducted. So when I entered into the field, the major two field sites were Odisha and West Bengal. Why again? The very standpoint question comes in the moment you as researcher enter into the field. Why Odisha? Why West Bengal? So when I started, my point was Odisha, particularly the city of Cuttack, which is considered as a silver city. Very much known for its silver filigree work, but when it comes to the goldsmiths, my pilot study revealed that most of the artisans are from Bengal. So that was the point I started with. Okay, who are these goldsmiths? Why are they here when it is a silver city? Where are the traditional artisans here? Or what happened to the traditional castes? Because we are in a society where caste plays an important role, where caste occupations who do hold a significance in the society. Particularly if you go back and ask at your homes, you would see that there would be one traditional smith attached to every family. So the very concept of jajmani, although not there, but in a way existing, or no, we have to again have a debate on that. So that's where it started in Odisha. But when I moved back, the field study did not got stuck to only Odisha, but had to move to a place from where the people were belonging to, that is West Bengal. To cross-verify that when the study was conducted in Kanpur, because I was doing my research from IIT Kanpur, that's where again the point came that, okay, we are not the traditional smiths, but we are we are the non-caste migrated Bengalis from the various regions of West Bengal. who are into this one, that is goldsmithing. So that's where if you see, the very idea of me doing ethnography was somewhere blurring out, but what methodology to be used, because I need to move back with them to their village was the point. Can you go to the next? So that's where again, when I was on the field, I could see that okay, goldsmith is fine, which comes under the category of manufacturer, but reaching directly to goldsmith was a question because they used to sit in the workshops which was owned by the retailers. So that is the point where the retailers would say that, okay, you talk to us. Why do you need to move into the workshop? Because we have a metal that is highly valued, and can we trust you? Was again a question. The third point when you are on field would also come up that how do you really develop a trust among your participants of the study. But also other than that, other than trust, the network that you need to develop when you are on a field. So here, when I started, I wanted to start with the manufacturers, but move back and forth with the very idea of moving from one field or moving from one particular site, following one particular person to the next one. So that's where my standpoint as a multi-sided ethnography came into the picture. So after entering into the field, when the interview started with the retailers, started with the wholesale traders, but reaching the manufacturers took its time. But other than that, the significant point that came into the picture, because when I started as a researcher, the point was to just look at their workplace transformation, and the mobility of the artisans. But what was interesting to mark that in all those blue lines, there is also a black line. And that is where the entire black market of the society stands. So if you see from mines to refineries, world market, then it is not entering into the state or national banks, but directly to the bullion traders, moving into the retailing sector, and then finally moving into the manufacturing sector and to the customers. Also, the point that is to be noted at this point is when the customer is buying the gold, the question is that particular jewelry legal or illegal? Because the customer might say that I have given my tax on the jewelry I'm buying. So that's where also the research stands, and that is the point where I want you to go back and reflect from where we started, that is thinking sociologically or the sociological imagination, that see right means points us to look beyond what is happening. And that's where comes the looking beyond of the scene. And when, if we can go to the next slide. When I entered into the field, the regulated commodity, that is gold, which is always in use for its regulation, we saw a highly unregulated workforce standing. And when we say unregulated, that is where also a question that has aroused from 1968 to understand that whether this entire crafting of gold or the goldsmithing can be considered as a craft or a industry. Because again, in 1968, a rule came by the government, that is the Gold Control Act, that where the very idea of formalizing the informal concept started. So how the very attempt by the state to formalize an informal labor market came into question. Although by 1990s we had our liberalization policies, we got this act repealed, we saw other kind of changes and amendments in the society. So this particular picture is a picture taken as this represents the picture of the certificate to certify a goldsmith as a goldsmith, which means a step by the government in 1968 to formalize the informal. Although it failed, it led to many other kind of events like suicide by the artisans, because when this particular act came in, it had many restrictions, particularly for the artisanal class, which included how much amount of gold they can keep, how much they can sell. Being an artisan, whether they will be able to even sell the kind of materials or the jewelries they are making was also coming under the very concept of scrutiny or surveillance. So that's where the question around formalizing the informal occupation came in, although repealed in 1990s. There were other regulations, and the regulations we still see it today. Now, other than that, what was the major finding from the field would include the very work structure of the manufacturers of gold industry, which includes various kinds of departments like we have in our academics. And what was interesting to note over there is, was I just seeing the work structure, or was I seeing a very structured, organized workplace? That's because when I looked at the work structure, it represented a very, again, we have to go back to the theories around caste, around the guild systems of India, to point out that, this particular work, although unorganized, although informal, had its own structure, was highly organized. So if you can give a picture. So that's where the structure was existing. That is where at the top we had our master craftsmen who were holding, or who were the owners of the workshop. Under them we had a master karigar who specialized the work but did not own the workshop. Then we have the journeyman and apprentice who were in the process of training. So that gives a question, a point to be raised, that even if the society was changing or has been in the process of change throughout, and the very concept of informal has been unorganized, the argument over here goes that was it organized, or can we say that informal can be also highly organized, is the question. So workplace transformations were there. If we can go to the next slide. So in workplace transformations, there were many transformations when it comes to machines, when it comes to technology. So the first one using the use of mouth in order to melt something, but the other one using the gas stoves. That's where, if you take a look at the picture, the workplace transformations are seen. The third picture is the melting machines. That is there. Again, not in the manufacturing workshop. This picture was taken in the retailing sector, that is in a showroom at a Tanishq showrooms, in one of the Tanishq showrooms. So that's how the machines stands in the workplace. Other than that, when we use the very term workplace transformations, the major transformations that we would see in the world of work was the growth of migration. Same was in the case of this artisanal sectors, where we saw entry of migrants. And when we see entry of migrants, I would like you to take a look at the pictures, which shows picture of a building, but very much highly above surface, because the number of steps you have to take to reach the entry of the household. And the other one is the picture just besides the building. So again, I would bring you back to the point that you went beyond. When I went back with the artisans to their village, this was what I saw. Now the question comes that, okay, there was migration, there was entry of artisans, but what was the reason behind it? As the normal researcher would do, the push and pull factors behind a migration that is happening. Can we go to the next? So again, if you try to look at the reasons behind migration, the obvious reasons would come in that there is flood, there is monocropping, there is lack of proper market facilities. And that was the thing. When I went back to the village, the major reason why the houses were in an elevated position was because of the continuous floods in the village, and each house was attached to a pond nearby. Outcome of the natural calamities was one of the major reasons that was given by the villagers as one of the major reasons why people move out of the village. The second reason that was given was monocropping, single crop in a season. So what to do next? Because when it comes to the market facilities, most of the artisans pointed out that they were into grass making. But the question of grass in our society and its decline over the time. And that's where something has to be done over the time. So these are the various theories who have confirmed to these findings, which says that how cropping or flood or lack of market facilities have led to growth of migration of this particular group of people. Now comes the question, what did I do as a researcher? I have gone back to the village just to find out, okay, I have the picture that there is flood or the house is elevated. But when I entered into the other field side, where the artisans were working, most of them were working in a workshop which was logged from outside. So that's where comes again the point where they made that we work with a high value metal. So can we actually trust our own work? And that is the reason we bring the boys from the village to work in the workshop so that we can trace them back if they run away with the food. So the importance of village networks, trust came as one of the major reasons behind growth of migration from one particular village to the different places, be it Odisha or be it Kanpur, where I was trying to interview the artisans. So that's where this line goes by one of the master craftsmen. हमारा लाइन ऐसा है जहां पे ज्यादा भरोसा करो तो भी प्रॉब्लम, भरोसा ना करो तो भी. So that's where the entire artisanal sector, particularly when it comes to gold, stands up. So that's where next slide. So that's where also I would again bring you back to the point where I had started, where I mentioned that not only to look behind, but also why multi-sided. So brief overview of the area, the marketplace area. This was a GIS tag mapping that was done around the marketplace where the artisans were settled, particularly the migrant artisans. And it clearly indicated that most of the marketplaces, be it where I did the field study, that is in Cuttack or the Damdam region of Kolkata, these artisans are settled in and around the residential places, nowhere in the outskirts of the city. Again, the reason is network and trust. So the network, because all of them would settle at one particular point, a development of a community, and the second one is residential, because this works as a guild where they have to also keep their workers with a guild-like structure where whosoever is coming to the master craftsman to work will have to stay back with the master craftsman at his or her place. So a guild-like structured workshop scenario was existing in the society. Then came the question where I had started with, what about the mobility of the artists? The first was what? Test change. The second is mobility. When it comes to mobility, when I went back to the villages, the point that villagers made was they are our gold engineers. Because they are the ones who were the successful ones in the villages, have achieved upward mobility, have been able to build houses back in the village, and when they mean houses, they mean permanent structured cemented houses back in the village. And that is all because of the gold engineering that they do in the goldsmithing workshops. So that is the reason why they were considered as gold engineers. They are the ones who have also made their village known in the city or urban spaces. But when you interview the manufacturing sectors per se, or the manufacturers per se, that is the point where they would say that my only concern is to give my child a better education, make them eligible to get a better job and get settled in their life, and not to do this. That's because for them, the work includes a high level of risk. The work includes a high level of, you can say, theft involved, a high level of loss can come in, and a risk to the life as well, particularly when it is in the context of gold. So that's where the journey of this artisans or group of labor stands. I would not restrict all of you to be thinking only to the goldsmiths. The same can apply to any of the labor category that is there in the society, or whatever skills if we look into. Who really wants their next generation to be into their work? Is the question, because we know what the work holds. The question of how much of mobility do the work holds and how much of pressure do the work holds is when you stand on that particular stage for that particular work. So if we can go to the next. So that's where right now I would bring you back to the theories from the field. So having looked at through the field insights, what did we really notice? So I started with the very idea of workplace transformations. Workplace transformations did exist. A shift from a caste to a non-caste based village network was somewhere existing. Theories like by the theories or studies by Kumraswamy or Srinivas, Deepak Mehta, Richard Sennett around craftsmen did point out to the shifts or the changes that has been marked, particularly when it comes to the occupational change. But at the same time, the question is, what was happening to the caste-based artisanal sector? That is where my next study was conducted around the caste-based silversmiths of the Silver City that was conducted. And the struggle, the challenges to have a recognition, have an identity comes out. And that's where we come to the question that can we say that, okay, the caste-based occupation is dying, but at the same time, we see a rise of new occupational clusters or occupational groups or occupational networks in the entire world of work. The second is the significance of village-based guild-like master-apprentice structure. So that's where from be the study is from the goldsmiths or the later study in the silversmithing scenario, where village played a very significant role, led to question that can we theorize the very idea of the movement from caste to a village-based networks to get a work, to get a job. Third is significance of network in a workplace. So that's where our theories like Anthony Giddens or particularly Granovetter pointed out to the strength of the weak tent. So it is most of the time, if you go back to Granovetter would say that it is our secondary friends who would help us in getting a job rather than the friend or the significant one in our life. So that was the point where if I take you back to the Goldsmith scenario, the finding pointed out that when a boy has to move out from the village, it was not his or her, particularly his. There is no her. It is not his uncle or father, but mostly the neighbor's son, who would be taking the significance position in this particular rise of network society. And that's where also Piozonka study stands the significance of trust in a network society. The fourth major finding, if we go back to the discussions we had, is informal. The moment we see the descriptions around informal, Jan Bremen has also gone to the extent of describing informal as footloose, the footloose laborers of our society who move around in search of work. But informal at this point also includes the group of workers who are highly skilled, highly organized, and highly networked. Is where also the debate and discussion needs to go around. The last one is the finding from my field particularly. But yes, the theories that are Catherine given at present was when you enter into the world of work and labor, has it given the labor a new identity or a new kind of work precarity in the workplace? Because if we look at the studies by Guy Standing or Kalberg and Fusion, they have pointed out that the moment we use the term precarity, it means unemployment. And the very concept of precarity has started in the Western context to refer to the unemployed youths or the ones who have lost their job, even if they were there in the job tomorrow. That's where the concept of precarity stands in. But what about when it comes to an Indian context? Because unemployment has been there in our society throughout. So that's also the point where we come to, or where we have a discussion around whether the workplace gives us a new identity in form of intergenerational mobility or upward mobility, mobility whatsoever it may be when it is compared with our contemporaries or our family or generational mobility. But what about the precarity attached to the new workspace, which is beyond the caste-based? The uncertainty attached to that particular workspace is where the world of work and labor stands. So, next slide. Thank you.
See, how you are pursuing this. Mostly design is like decided. Well, thank you very much. All the students, especially when we saw notice, he took a pen, I think, but still, because I just opposed him, I said no. You haven't accept this. Whether it was a student secret, so we cannot say no. This I don't know. I thank all of the students with this. offline and joining in person, and also those who have joined in online. So I thank each and every speaker, esteemed speaker for their participation and speaking on diverse topics. I thank all my research scholars, in fact, those who kind of motivated me to arrange this workshops in a very short, mostly, of course, in the amount of time without any structure, planning, and anything. But eventually, it would, I think, ended up well. I should say very well, but probably I think it was a good attempt. At least I could have an opportunity to listen to one of them, and I learned them. I don't know others and all. At least this concept, Newman's concepts, I have to do again. So doctors with this photography approach also. Very new things came up. I think scholars also benefited a lot. Those who were novice and new age and those who in the mid of their research skills. So very interesting to see that a group of participants from diverse disciplines also participating. So this kind of so I think it was to be continued in future. So I think experiment. So the credit was more to this. Thank you very much. Yeah. Thank you very much. Thank you. Certificates and it's good that it was a wonderful experience. Now the formal proceeding is over. Now it is very, very informal. This will not be a part of the proceedings. I'm taking this liberty because I happen to be a former teacher of the communicator, and therefore I'm taking the liberty for everybody's benefit. Two things I have observed. Number one is this workshop was meant for you people. Then I didn't see that was response from you. Probably there was some kind of lag. What we said and what you perceive. In the class, I always say that if you don't raise a question or if you don't interact with your teacher, you have understood everything or you have understood nothing. I don't know which one is correct for you. This is my observation, so therefore participate as much as you can. Whether you like or don't like, whether we agree or don't disagree, we should interact. This is the opportunity. At least I can say that we people have seen life much longer than you. Yes or no? So therefore, probably that this was an opportunity. Second one, to the coordinator, sir. I don't know the exact background of your scholars, but then you have already more than once you have said they come from diverse backgrounds. And therefore, in your next workshop, we invite the resource persons suiting their background. Because there is in linguistics, I always give the example of jargons. Jargon is an English word. But then, if you go to the doctor will use its own jargons, his own or his or her own jargons. If you go, like many other things, like if you go to a lawyer, the lawyer will use his or her own jargons. Because jargons are a part of our life. If I'm an anthropologist, anthropological jargons are a part of my life. Consciously or unconsciously, I must be using those kinds of jargons, which may not be understood by a student of economics or a student of history, political science. So because of these reasons, I would request him, next time, if he arranges this kinds of workshop, he should keep in mind the core background of the scholars.
And the resource persons, if they come from the same background, probably it will not end up with monologues, it will end up with the dialogues. And that is what we expect, and that should be the final outcome of this kinds of workshop. I would like to thank Professor Behra for going out of the way to organize this kind of workshop. He was narrating to me, and again it is informal. Don't quote me. He was saying that, you know, he is in full liberty to organize anything. So therefore, he has taken a risk, and that is for the benefit of the scholars. I'm sure that if you are benefited, if you are not benefited, next time, please see to it that you get the maximum out of this kinds of workshop. Let this not go waste. I'm not talking in terms of money. I'm talking in terms of your time and the time of the resource persons. So please keep this in mind. But in any case, all our contact addresses and emails are available with your coordinator. You can always contact us if you have anything that you want clarification from us or guidance from us. Basically, we are teachers, and therefore nothing to be very scared. And teacher-student relationship should be like that. Let us grow together. There is in Sanskrit, and it is a part of our morning prayer also when we were in the school, that it comes from Atharva Veda. I'm not going to the Sanskrit verse, but the idea is between what is the relationship between a teacher and a student. It is mutuality. Let us prosper together. Let us grow together. Let us protect. Let God protect both of us together. There is always a kind of togetherness between a teacher and a student. So that spirit should continue. I'm very happy that Professor Behra has organized this, and more workshops are to come in future for the benefit of the scholars. Make full use of these workshops. Thank you so much.
Yes, sir.